January 19th, 2019. Jeff Bezos, the richest man in the world, posts a joint statement with his wife of 25 years announcing their divorce. It's cordial, dignified, a mutual decision after, quote, a long period of loving exploration. 24 hours later, the National Enquirer drops 11 pages that blow up the internet. Text messages, private jets across 5 states, a months-long affair with Emmy-winning journalist Lauren Sánchez, and one phrase that becomes an instant meme, quote, I love you, alive girl. But here's where it gets wild. Within weeks, Bezos does something no billionaire has ever done. He publishes the tabloid's blackmail threats on Medium, calling out alleged extortion. His own security investigation points to the leak coming from Lauren's brother, who sold them out for $200,000. 6 years later, they got married in Venice in one of the most expensive weddings of the decade. Their affair beat odds that statisticians say are basically impossible. Less than 2% of affairs turn into lasting marriages. So what makes this one different? I'm Nikki Corbett, and this is my series, Affairs Through the Ages, brought to you by the Scarlet Edit. If this is your first introduction to the Scarlet Edit, I'd like to welcome you. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, please take 30 seconds and go and rate their show 5 stars. I will absolutely love you forever. I'd also like to share what Affairs Through the Ages is and is not. It is not a series condoning affairs, but it is also not a series judging affairs. It is a retelling of an affair that was in the public eye sometime between now and when time literally began. Did you know that affairs are on record since before Jesus walked the earth? They are. Now, let's get into it. You probably know the Amazon origin story. 1994, a garage in Seattle, selling books on the internet. But here's what most people don't know. MacKenzie Bezos wasn't just along for the ride. She met Jeff in 1992 at the hedge fund where she worked as his assistant. They married after 3 months, and she drove across country with him to Seattle to start Amazon. She wrote the first business plan, handled accounting, negotiated freight contracts, packed orders. She won the American Book Award for her debut novel, and she put her writing career on hold to build what would become a $1 trillion company. 25 years, 4 kids whose names we don't know because they've been fiercely protected from media attention, and by 2018, sources say they'd been in what their eventual statement called a, quote, long period of loving exploration and trial separation, end quote. The marriage that built Amazon was quietly ending. Lauren Sánchez is an Emmy-winning? Lauren Sánchez is an Emmy-winning journalist. Good Day LA extra, So You Think You Can Dance. But here's what's interesting. She's a licensed helicopter and airplane pilot, not a celebrity vanity thing. She's serious about aviation. In 2016, she founded Black Ops Aviation, an aerial filming company. She wasn't just the CEO putting her name on it, though. She was in the cockpit flying helicopters for film and TV productions, a legitimate business in a male-dominated industry. She'd been married since 2005 to Patrick Whitesell, co-CEO of William Morris Endeavor, one of Hollywood's biggest talent agencies. He represents Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, Hugh Jackman. He's a major power player. They have 2 kids together, and Lauren also has a son from a previous relationship with NFL player Tony Gonzalez. By 2018, according to sources, their marriage, quote, felt more like a business relationship. They were both doing their own thing, end quote. The spark was gone, but Patrick had no idea his wife was involved with Jeff Bezos. And here's a detail that becomes important. Patrick is the person who introduced Jeff and Lauren. Early 2017, Amazon Studios is producing The Man in the High Castle. They need aerial footage. Patrick helps facilitate the introduction to Lauren's company, Black Ops Aviation. Lauren's not just sending a crew, she's the pilot, which means she's working directly with Amazon Studios, eventually with Jeff himself. And here's where things get interesting. We all know Jeff owns Blue Origin, a space company. He's trying to send people to space. Remember, this is 2017, so he hadn't sent them up there yet. And Lauren, a pilot, understands the technical side, flight dynamics, engineering, and what it feels like to be in the air. They start talking about helicopters, about spaceflight, about aviation. Because of all of this, there are a lot of legitimate reasons for them to be in meetings together. The 4 of them actually socialize. Dinners, events, industry parties. Jeff and MacKenzie, Lauren and Patrick. Nobody suspects anything. But somewhere between 2017 and early 2018, professional became personal. By summer of 2018, they're having a full-on affair. Private jets, secret trips to at least 5 states. The National Enquirer later claims that they track them across 40,000 miles. Crazy. That's where I think it would actually be really fun to be that type of journalist and be like on the road, on the hunt, trying to see what people are up to. Although, not that I'm saying that I think any human should be tracked because of their personal relationships, but investigative journalism certainly is intriguing. Jeff and Lauren are taking selfies, sending text messages. I love you alive, girl. I want to smell you. I want to breathe you in. Your energy and ideas and competence and spirit turn me on. Okay, all of these make me cringe. Only from the perspective of we all know what it's like to be totally enamored with somebody and to just send text messages when you're in that state of love and lust and excitement. But we don't want anybody else to read them. Like, they're intended for one person. So they're not intended for everybody around the world, anybody to be able to Google and read. So it just makes me cringe knowing that it's like there was so much more. Like, I don't want to read them. Like, I don't want to read somebody's intimate messages to their person. That's for private eyes only. But I also think it just kind of means that like nothing is actually private unless you're talking to somebody one-on-one with like no technology in the room listening, right? These text messages aren't just physical. They're building emotional intimacy, falling in love, or at least building something that feels different from what each of them have at home. Meanwhile, all 4 of them are still showing up at the same events, playing the part of 2 friendly couples. Patrick and MacKenzie, though, have no idea. By late 2018, both Jeff and Lauren realize that their marriages are over. They're trying to figure out how to manage the narrative, control the timing, and make it look less like what it actually is. But someone very close to them has already sold them out. Michael Sanchez, Lauren's brother, Hollywood talent manager, and Trump supporter with connections to Roger Stone. Here's Michael's version. Lauren came to him worried that the affair would leak. She allegedly wanted to get ahead of it, maybe leak to TMZ herself. He says he advised her against that and went to the National Enquirer to protect her. Better to deal with one outlet than a media free-for-all. But here's what actually happened. In October 2018, Michael signs a contract with the National Enquirer's parent company. They pay him $200,000 up front, which is very unusual in the tabloid world. Normally, you only get paid if they publish, but Michael's contract guaranteed payment regardless. In exchange, he gave them exclusive rights to, quote, certain information, photographs, and text messages documenting an affair between Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sánchez, end quote. Federal prosecutors later confirmed Lauren had sent texts to her brother's phone confiding in him. She trusted him. He sold them for $200,000. The contract was signed in October 2018, but the story didn't publish until January of 2019. So for 3 months, he sat on it, he got paid, and Lauren had no idea. And it gets even messier. Michael was consulting with Roger Stone during this time. Stone, a political operative, a Trump ally. Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post. Trump hated Bezos over Washington Post coverage. The National Enquirer's CEO, David Pecker, was Trump's longtime friend. So, was this about money or politics or both? We don't know because Michael's never given a clear answer, but it's clearly very, very messy. When confronted, Michael denied being the source, then claimed he was protecting them, and then he sued both the Enquirer and Jeff for defamation. The Enquirer responded, quote, Michael Sanchez sold the National Enquirer the story and was the sole source, end quote. Here's what's striking. Lauren has never publicly addressed her brother's betrayal. Not in an interview, not in a statement, not on social media, nothing. Complete radio silence on the topic. Michael was not in attendance at their wedding in Venice. The guest list included Oprah, the Kardashians, Tom Brady, Bill Gates, and even Lauren's ex, Tony Gonzalez. But there was no Michael Sanchez. Other members of her family were there, but not him. So I have a lot of thoughts on all of this. I have to assume that Lauren truly had no idea that her brother had done this. And the reason I think that is because I think that if Jeff were to have known that Lauren knew this was happening for 3 whole months' time before the story broke, or even if Michael had come to her and told her a month before, 2 weeks before, that would be such a huge betrayal from her to him. So I strongly believe that Lauren had no idea. And that's probably one of the biggest things that made her and Jeff stay together, because I just can't see a man of his status and success and power feeling like the woman that he was in love with, the woman that he had this brand new, exciting relationship with, as his marriage was ending, that he would be okay with her knowing that this huge bomb was going to hit the media without his knowledge. So I am of the assumption that Lauren did not know that her brother had made this massive deal with the National Enquirer. And I'm also curious to know, like, where did they get the $200,000 valuation? Like, why was that information valued at $200,000 and not less or not more? I mean, he's the richest man in the world at the time. So, like, were there negotiations? Like, why wasn't that information worth more? Or how did they come to that number? I don't know. Just as I was doing research for the story, I was like, that's an interesting number, you know? From a timeline perspective, January 9th, 2019, Jeff and MacKenzie announced their separation. January 10th, 2019, the National Enquirer publishes everything about the affair between Jeff and Lauren. Jeff then hires security consultant Gavin DeBecker to investigate the leak. The investigation points to Michael and raises questions about political motivations. When the Enquirer learns Jeff is investigating, they panic and threaten him. In emails, they say they'll publish explicit below the belt selfies of Jeff unless he stops investigating, and issues a statement saying their coverage wasn't politically motivated. They put this in writing. So on February 7th, 2019, Jeff publishes everything on Medium. The post is titled, "No Thank You, Mr. Pecker." He includes the Enquirer's threatening emails, descriptions of the photos, all of it. Does anyone else find it incredibly ironic that a man with the last name of Pecker is threatening to expose Jeff Bezos' dick pics? Because I do, and it really makes me laugh. Jeff writes, "Of course, I don't want personal photos published, but I also won't participate in their well-known practice of blackmail, political favors, political attacks, and corruption. I prefer to stand up, roll this log over, and see what crawls out." This was unprecedented. Billionaires don't do this. They hire lawyers and make problems go away quietly. But Jeff called their bluff. Federal prosecutors started investigating, and within months, the Enquirer was put up for sale. Jeff and MacKenzie finalized their divorce in July 2019, 6 months after the announcement. Incredibly fast for this level of wealth. MacKenzie got 4% of Amazon stock, which was valued at the time at $38.3 billion, the largest divorce settlement in history. She could have demanded more, as Washington is a community property state. She was there from day one before Amazon even existed. So she definitely had legal grounds. Why didn't she? Why didn't she ask for more? I don't know. It could have been speed, independence, not wanting to prolong a court battle, or simply just because she wanted to move on, and $38 billion is a lot of fucking money. There was no public fighting, no custody battles, no leaked accusations. She issued a gracious statement wishing Jeff well. Post-divorce, she became Mackenzie Scott, signed the Giving Pledge, and has since donated over $26 billion to nonprofits. Her net worth is still around $40 billion because Amazon's stock continued to grow. Lauren and Patrick filed for divorce in April of 2019, and it was finalized in October, also only 6 months. They had a prenup, so assets were divided cleanly, joint custody of the kids, and Lauren kept their home. Now, a little sidebar here, I did an episode a few months ago with a prenup attorney. I highly recommend you check it out, especially if you are planning on getting married anytime soon. It made me see prenups in such a different light, and I learned so much. And I think that prenups get such a bad rap, but they can really, really save you. So you should go check it out. Patrick has never publicly bad-mouthed Lauren, not once. He remarried in 2021, seems happy, and they're successfully co-parenting their children. Speaking of children, Jeff and MacKenzie have 4 children. Their names have never been disclosed and they're completely shielded from the media. This is so wild to me. Like, what must that be like to, I mean, their friends obviously know who their parents are, but to be able to go through life relatively anonymously, unlike some other celebrity children who are in such like the media from the time they're infants, it's got to be such a different world and really cool, I think, for them to be able to actually grow up and choose what kind of life they want to live for themselves, whether it's public or private. Lauren has 3 children, one with ex football player Tony Gonzalez and 2 with Patrick. So, total 7 kids, blended family. By all accounts, they're okay. There was no reported custody drama, but obviously they have all kept their children so quiet, we don't really know anything about how either divorce did or did not affect any of them. So, let's move on to some statistics around affairs and marriage. Only 5 to 7% of affairs result in marriage. Okay, 5 to 7% of affairs. Of those, 75% end in eventual divorce. Overall, less than 2% of affairs become lasting, healthy marriages. Jeff and Lauren have been together now over 6 years. They were engaged for 2 and they got married last summer. So, what makes them different? Here are some of my thoughts and my own speculation based on nothing but my mind and some of my experience. Number 1 is wealth. Wealth definitely removes obstacles. There's the old saying, money can't buy happiness, but it can buy a lot of other things that contribute to happiness. They both could afford clean divorces, the best lawyers, and privacy when needed. Most affair marriages collapse under financial stress and custody battles, but they had resources to handle everything smoothly. But wealth alone obviously doesn't keep you together. Plenty of rich people have affairs that crash spectacularly. But having the means to do what needed to be done certainly helped and definitely helped. Both of the marriages that they were in were already over. And I think that this is a key point. There are times when couples stay together and they know that they have outgrown one another. Obviously, in this case, Jeff and MacKenzie had already been quietly separated and it wasn't made public yet. Lauren and Patrick's marriage had felt like a business relationship for a very long time. And so this wasn't impulsive. It wasn't a grass is greener situation. It wasn't a, my gosh, both of the spouses are going to be so devastated when they find out. I mean, they certainly, I would imagine, they certainly weren't thrilled in learning about it, but it wasn't like they were walking around the world thinking that their marriage was sunshine and rainbows while their spouses were off having an affair. Both of their marriages were deteriorating before the affair started. Jeff and Lauren have a lot of shared passions. It's very common to talk about. Do we have shared morals, shared values, shared outlook on what's going on in the world, shared religious views, shared ways we want to raise kids? But I also think that it's important to have shared interests and have little things in common because little things can often compound and make up the big things. Jeff and Lauren are both workaholics. They're both intensely ambitious. They have shared passion for aviation and they can talk shop in ways that their previous spouses maybe couldn't. The next thing is that they weathered the worst. This is something that can definitely make or break you. Now, they're both already public figures before they got involved with one another, so certainly used to being names in the media, but this got really big really fast in a surprising way that they weren't anticipating. So, having a global scandal, dealing with blackmail, her brother's betrayal, a $38 billion divorce for Jeff, federal investigations. I mean, if this relationship was going to fail and crack under pressure, I think maybe one of those things, let alone all of those things, would have done it. But instead, it certainly looked like it bonded them. Once the divorces were final, they had a clean slate. They could live out loud. They weren't lying anymore. They weren't sneaking around anymore. They didn't have to live these double lives. And that probably felt like a huge weight was lifted off their shoulders when they could just finally be. I think life stage and maturity also really play a role in why, after all of the global scandal broke and everything that happened after it, why they've managed to stay together. Jeff is 61, Lauren's 55. Obviously, we know they've both been previously married, they have kids, and they've both achieved success in their own right. So at this point, they're choosing each other because they want each other, not because they need each other. This isn't a midlife crisis for either of them. They understand what relationships require, and they understand what they each want in a partner. Jeff clearly values having a partner that understands his businesses, understands what he's doing, and wants to build with him. And Lauren has a lot of those attributes. Given that she has her own aviation business, she can have conversations with him about all of that stuff as he continues to build Blue Origin. And I think that they both really value that in one another. So this wasn't a, ooh, like this is so fun to sneak around and travel and have this wild, crazy, sexy affair. They actually like really, really like each other and want to be together versus just, like a sordid fling. So, as we wrap this up, here's what I keep thinking about. Most affairs are built on fantasy, sneaking around, stolen moments, the thrill of the forbidden. When they become real life, they eventually collapse under guilt, anger, finances, hurt, social stigma. Even if you don't get caught, once the fantasy part simmers down, it can really hit hard and make the relationship less shiny and less exciting. Jeff and Lauren's affair became real life immediately and publicly. So they didn't really have a transition period. The whole world was watching. So they had to build something real from day one if they were going to do it at all. I think this affair succeeded not because affairs are great or true love conquers all. I think it succeeded because two people who were already ready to leave their marriages found each other at the right time. They weathered unbelievable scrutiny, they had the resources to do it right, and everyone involved chose grace over revenge. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not saying they deserved this happy ending, although spectators to affairs sometimes do say for an affair to be worth it, they better end up together. And in this case, so far, they have. Will this last forever? Who knows? Statistics still aren't in their favor, so only time will tell. Because I am an utter hopeless romantic, I do hope it works out. I hope that this is the end for them. I hope they live a long, happy, beautiful life together, and that in no amount of time, I'm sitting here again telling a story about an affair with either of their names in it. I love, and I love seeing people in love. And when you go through a lot of shit to get that love, and you still keep fighting for each other, I want to see people win because I love love. Anyway, as always, thank you so much for listening. I appreciate each and every one of you. Come back on Thursday for a regular episode of the Scarlet Edit. As always, if you are listening on Apple, please go and rate this show 5 stars. I will love you forever. I'm Nikki Corbett, and this is the Scarlet Edit. P.S. If you've made it this far, this is the 3rd time I recorded this episode. The first time, I just didn't like it. The second time, I loved it, but my microphone wasn't all the way plugged in, so the audio sounded like absolute shit. So I came up and did it again. Anyway, if you heard that, let me know. See you on Thursday.